Hello everyone, it's Megan again, and I'm back to review My Hero Academia You're Next. This is the most recent My Hero Academia film. There have been 3 others before this, but I've only seen the first one, Two Heroes. However, one fun thing about these movies is that even though they're canon to the main plot line, they do not affect the plot whatsoever. You can watch them as standalone films without ever having watched or read the series, and you can also watch or read the series without ever seeing the films, and it will make no difference. Okay, so the main plot of this movie was basically, I think roughly all the movies are kind of the same in terms of plot. The main characters work together with one temporary character that they meet who is on their side and are fighting against temporary villains who we never see or hear from again. So in this movie, the main hero that they were fighting with was Giulio, and they were trying to save this girl, Anna, who had been kidnapped by this Italian mafia family. And it was very interesting because there was...
Giulio, not Julio?
Giulo.
Oh, okay. Italian name.
Yes. There was a lot of European influence. The main characters had flamenco music as their themes. There was some European setting and influence, even though the characters did not actually travel to Europe. And overall, I liked that part. I think that the influence was cool. It's always interesting to see in these movies what the hero society is like in different countries. Basically, as long as you know the basic plot of the main story, you could even just read a blurb online. You'd be fine going into this movie and watching it without ever having seen the rest of the series or the previous 3 movies. The previous 3 movies hold no relevance whatsoever. The farthest I've seen into the series is partway through season 5, and this movie actually took place within the first couple episodes of season 7. So the entirety of season 6 is lost on me. I have not seen any of it. However, there was not a recap in the beginning of this movie like I expected, but that didn't really make a difference. I was worried that the recap would give some spoilers, but since there was no recap, I didn't have to worry about that. There was only one big thing that probably could be considered a spoiler, but I already knew about it, so I didn't really care about that. And based on the spread of information on the internet, it's likely you already know what that is anyway. It is also likely you know the main plot of season 6, and that explained the state the country of Japan was in this movie. But otherwise, you could really watch this movie without knowing very much at all, and it would make no difference whatsoever. The first thing I noticed was right off the bat, the animation was incredible. And even between like season 1 and season 5 of the series, the animation improves dramatically, but this was such incredible animation that the movie started playing and I thought it was not even My Hero Academia because it was so incredible and so different. Not different in style, but different in quality from the series. I wouldn't say that the movies are more violent than the series, but I guess they just sort of focus a little more on action and less on the plot because they're so disconnected from the main plot line. However, even though there is more action and slightly more violence, I do still think that it is appropriate for kids like 10 and up. The only other people in the theater with me were a kid who looked to be about 12 and his mom. And he seemed perfectly fine. He didn't even flinch at the dang R-rated previews. So I do think it's okay to take your kids like 10 and up to see these films. Overall, I did enjoy the film. I mean, I'm a big fan of My Hero Academia in general. However, there were some parts of this that seemed a little bit complicated to me. There was a lot going on. Because there are a lot of characters, it's always kind of hard to keep track of everybody in this series. But this was like exceptionally difficult because of the nature of some of the characters' powers. And I think what made it more complicated was that I saw the Japanese sub of the movie. And usually I watch everything in English. And I think just the fact that my brain had to keep up with reading the subtitles and trying to understand everything at the same time, I was having a little trouble following some parts, especially the explanations. Both the subbed and dubbed versions of the movie were playing in the movie theater I saw it at. However, I chose to see the subbed version because the dubbed was playing way later and I just didn't want to go to a movie that late. If the timing had worked out better, I would have gone to the dubbed version. I have studied Japanese quite a bit. I've taken multiple classes on it. I would consider my speech level intermediate. And that does help in some cases. But this one, again, there was just a lot going on. And I feel like it didn't really help me much for this movie. So I was relying really heavily on those subtitles. and that made it more difficult too. Of course, if you're not a speaker of Japanese, it's going to be extra difficult to understand everything that's going on, in which case I would recommend seeing the dubbed version instead of the subbed. The only other thing that disappointed me about this movie, which I guess was kind of to be expected, it was on par for the movies, was that most of the characters, except for the main character and the temporary introduced main characters, did not get much attention at all. They were all sort of just like background support. And like I said, that's typical of the movies, but don't go into this thinking you're gonna see like your favorite side characters or even your favorite some of the main characters, because they do not get a lot of attention. Overall, I think I would probably rate it 4 out of 5 stars, but a different 4 out of 5 stars than I gave to Look Back. If you haven't seen my review of Look Back, check it out. That one I gave 4 out of 5 stars for a different reason. This was a very enjoyable and high quality movie. I don't know, I might watch it again later in English just so I can understand it better, but otherwise I wouldn't go see it again. Because it's not consequential to the main series, it's not important for me to see it again, but I still liked it and I'm happy I went to it in the theaters. In summary, this was my review of My Hero Academia, You're Next, and I would rate it 4 out of 5 stars.